Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror thriller TV series named Island Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins with a newlywed couple venturing into the deep woods to take wedding photos. Little did they know, the ancient lust demons lurking in the corners prey on the ignorant by disguising themselves. The couple accidentally touched a cursed stone and instantly became hosts to demons, killing the photographer. Fortunately, a muscular demon hunter named Ban appeared to flex his muscles, finished the ugly male demon, and sent it straight to meet Satan. In this world, where there is evil, there is also divinity, and some act as exorcists, the divine representatives on earth. The young man named Juan is an exorcist. He had just dealt with a demon-possessed person when he was called away by another priest from the church. The priest told him that every human chosen by the divine to be a savior will be pursued by dark forces. This time, they hoped Juan would take on the task to protect this chosen one. The scene changes to a charming business lady named Juan, who is holding a press conference. Even when faced with persistent reporters, her responses and answers are deft and assured. Juan is a decisive and swift woman. Whether in business or dealing with thugs, nothing is too challenging for her. However, due to an oversight in her family's hotel business dispute, she was betrayed by her own aunt. In an attempt to extricate her driver from trouble, Juan taught the two thugs a lesson. But someone with an agenda captured the incident on camera, slandering her for assaulting the innocent. The next day, the scandal was all over the news, causing the hotel's stock prices to drop. The executives had to convene an emergency board meeting and revoked Juan's management rights. Her aunt, waiting on the way, watched with pleasure as Juan fell from grace. Indeed, Juan's father, the president of the company, was furious, took back her privileges, and sent her on an extended leave to the remote city on Jeju Island to work as a volunteer at a school. Juan had no choice but to follow her father's arrangement, unaware that it was a place where ancient demons had appeared and been suppressed, a city surrounded by mysterious forces. As soon as Juan stepped out of the airport, she felt a strange connection with an old woman in the deep mountains. Confused, she touched her heart, feeling a shock, and continued to the parking lot. However, not long after, she saw a hideous demon in a corner, feasting on a human. The demon, in a dirty wedding dress, was actually the bride who had gone to the mountains to take wedding photos a few days ago. The demon bride, sensing a unique scent on Juan, began to attack her. Its agility far surpassed that of a human. Even when Juan hid in a truck, the demon bride broke through and lunged at her. In utter fear, Juan lost her sanity and screamed in a chicken voice non-stop, hoping for a savior to descend from the skies to save her chicken life. That's when the demon hunter Ban arrived to flex his muscles, fought with the demon bride, and soon repelled her. After ensuring safety, the two looked at each other for a long time, but did not fall into a kiss. Suddenly, Juan felt another heart tremor and fainted. When she awoke, she had arrived at her family's secret mansion on Jeju Island, a mysterious house built on a cliff. The next day, the old woman asked Ban whether he had seen the savior yesterday and if the savior resembled the one from the past life. However, the man remained silent. Observing his desolation, she seemed somewhat angry because with the appearance of the demon and the savior, the man's stalled fate could now move forward, which should be a good thing for him. It turned out that the man had lived for a very long time in this world. As a child, he was chosen by the head of a temple known for exorcisms and was infused with the blood of an ancient lust demon, becoming a half-demon, half-human exorcist monk. During his trials to become a demon-slaying hunter, he had encountered the savior from the previous life. The following day, Juan joined the school as a new employee. Due to her wealthy family's influence, the principal arranged a comfortable position for her as a psychological counselor. Juan was also not willing to stay there for long because she learned from the news that after her departure, her aunt was entrusted with a significant role by the corporate group. This deeply upset Juan, who couldn't swallow her pride. After being outmaneuvered by her aunt, Juan had secretly started an investigation into the matter. To her surprise, she discovered that her driver had been bought off by her aunt, who had received Juan's itinerary and intentionally sent two thugs to set up the play. Juan immediately confronted her driver, fired him on the spot, but still mindful of the past, she gave him the car and walked away. Unbeknownst to her, as soon as she left, the driver became possessed by a demon and started to chase after Juan. The scene shifts to a flashback showing the previous savior, May, was the granddaughter from the demon-hunting family. She couldn't bear to see Ban and another child being trained harshly as demon-hunting monks. so she took advantage of a moment when no one was around to release the two half-demon children from the prison. While she was freeing Ban, his demonic nature suddenly erupted and he bit her arm. It was this bite that caused May to collapse on the road of escape. She had wanted to flee with the boys, but due to severe injuries, Ban had to carry her back to the temple. May's life was saved, but the two boys faced harsh punishment. A few days later, May returned to the prison, tearfully bidding the boys farewell, stating she was going to train and become stronger so she could truly protect these vulnerable children. May hoped that Ban would also strive to survive. Back to the present, Juan was being pursued by a demon-possessed driver deep into the forest. Just as she was about to fall prey to his malice, Ban appeared once again to flex his muscles. He wielded a specially crafted short sword, and upon his arrival, he swiftly severed the driver's hormone-let-go arm. However, the demon possessed great regenerative abilities, and the driver's arm quickly regrew. Ban calmly faced the challenge, chanting a spell to encircle the area of combat with a barrier. Then ensued a clash filled with dazzling electric sparks. After several moves, the driver was turned to ashes, his remains forming a stone which Ban picked up before leaving the scene. Shortly thereafter, outside the barrier, the voices of the police and Juan's butler could be heard as the barrier began to slowly fade. Juan told the police what she had seen, but the more they listened, the more perplexed they became, even suspecting that Juan might be drugged. The butler had to intervene, reassuring Juan that he believed her story, while simultaneously addressing the police. In truth, the butler was indeed informed. That evening, he was to receive an important visitor sent from the church. It's Chan. Chan got straight to the point, declaring that Juan was the new savior predicted in the church's prophecy, and that his mission here was to protect her. The butler agreed to cooperate, planning to introduce Chan to Juan as his nephew. After coming home, Juan increasingly felt that the small city on Jeju Island was very strange. Seizing the opportunity when the butler was distracted, she quietly went to the airport, hoping to catch the last flight back to Seoul. But the demon was one step ahead, having already possessed an airport security guard before Juan arrived. She had trouble purchasing a ticket. Clearly, someone in her family had tipped off the airline to prevent her from fleeing to Seoul. Juan was soon brought to the security room for investigation. At that moment, the demonized guard approached. Having killed his colleagues, he started moving towards Juan, step by step. In a desperate move, she stole a car from a bystander and sped away, but the guard clung to the roof, his presence inescapable. Suddenly, a statue appeared in the middle of the road. Juan, unable to avoid it, crashed, causing the car to flip over. Fortunately, she was not injured and immediately took refuge in an abandoned house by the roadside. Then, Ban once again came to her aid, effortlessly killing the guard, who turned to ashes, leaving behind a glowing stone. After being attacked 3 times, Juan urgently wanted to know what these monsters really were. Ban explained that they were lust demons, omnipresent beings that could take on human forms to get close to Juan and then kill her. Confused as to why she was being targeted, Ban simply stated that it was Juan's destiny and that running away was futile. Even abroad, the lust demons would follow her. The only option was to fight and defeat them. On that day, Chan went to the various locations where Ban had battled the demons and collected some remnants. Both the butler and the church members had heard of Ban, this enigmatic man. Although Ban was formidable and also an enemy of the demons, they were not certain whether Ban was a friend or foe. One returned to the mansion on the cliff. Since hearing Ban's words about the lust demons, which could take human form to approach her, everything around her became a source of suspicion. As night fell, one could only shrink in her bed, too scared to move. At that moment, Ban slipped into Juan's room like a wisp of smoke. Although she knew nothing of Ban's identity, the fact that he had saved her 3 times fostered a sense of trust. And in spite of her complaints, Juan proposed that Ban become her bodyguard. She quickly drafted a contract only to face Ban's rejection. Out of desperation, Juan implored him to stay with her for the night to protect her fragile body because she was truly frightened. After she spoke, the effects of the sleeping pills took hold, and she fell into a deep sleep, snoring like a pig. The tender-hearted Ban did not leave. Instead, he sat by the bedside and saw the scar on Juan's shoulder, which was the same mark as that on May. The next morning, Juan awoke contentedly to find that the contract left on the table had been signed by Ban. She was happy that she didn't have to live in fear anymore with Ban by her side. Although the contract was signed, Ban's feelings were complex as he was reminded of the past. His initial reluctance to protect Juan stemmed from the fact that he had accidentally killed May in a fit of madness years ago. Ban was worried that he still couldn't control himself. It was Juan's first day going to school with Ban. At breakfast, she told the butler that she had just hired a bodyguard and asked him to prepare a room for Ban's living quarters. She needed his close protection. At the front door, the butler saw the stoic Ban, who left without a word, appearing very impolite. Juan had to explain that the bodyguard was not sociable. Worse still, Ban presumptuously took the back seat and buckled up, assuming the role of the employer, leaving Juan to drive. Along the way, she consoled herself that she was only driving because Ban didn't know how. But these were trivial matters. What Juan really wanted to know was who Ban really was, and why he could defeat the legendary lust demons. Ban, however, remained mysterious and did not answer a single question. Feeling it pointless to inquire further, Juan simply kept quiet and sped to school. Upon arrival at school, Ban again took control, reminding Juan not to wander off without his command. This was becoming increasingly absurd to Juan, as it was Ban who should be following her orders. She instructed him to stay in the office and not to move without her permission. After that, Juan went to her classroom to prepare for class. Due to her status as a super-wealthy heiress, her classmates were all abuzz, gossiping about her by use of their big mouths. Annoyed, Juan began to call the roll for absentees and deducted points for absence. No sooner had she finished speaking than a girl named Jane picked up her backpack and declared her intention to skip class openly. Jane visited her classmate Sue at home. Sue had also skipped school to stay at home, suffering from severe psychological distress caused by her boyfriend's bullying. She was so afraid that she didn't dare to leave the house. Jane urged her to call the police, but Sue's boyfriend had her intimate photos and threatened to leak them if adults got involved. Under his control, Sue could only yell for Jane to leave, not wanting to drag Jane into her troubles. Desperate, Jane sought help from Juan to save Sue, but Juan flatly refused, not wanting to meddle. That night, the butler led Ban to his room. Years ago, when battling the lust demons, the butler had encountered Ban and knew he was not human. Alone, the butler confronted Ban, saying he would trust him for now to protect Juan, acknowledging that humans couldn't resist the lust demons. That evening, Ban didn't stay at the villa. He returned to a familiar place, and his weapons suddenly lit up. Nearby, under an ancient tree known as the god of Benjul, a girl was praying. It was Sue, at her wit's end, asking the ancient deity for escape from her bullying boyfriend. While Ban was away, the butler introduced the exorcist Chan to Juan. They drank together, and a drunken Juan poured out her sorrows, lamenting her family's ostracism and being haunted by demons several times, with her only protector being as uncommunicative as a stone. As soon as she finished, Ban returned to the villa. Juan reached for Ban, seeking some affection, but Ban coldly shrugged her off. Chan, learning from the butler that this man was the legendary demon hunter Ban. He sought him out, curiously sniffing around Ban and concluding that he carried the scent of the lust demons. Ban just warned Chan to mind his own business. The next day, Juan was the driver as usual, and Chan also hopped into the passenger seat, wanting to visit the school for fun. But halfway there, Ban suddenly shouted to stop the car and walked alone into the roadside forest. Perplexed, Juan continued to school without Ban. Upon reaching the school gates, Jane rushed out, stopping Juan and Chan, pleading for them to save her classmate Sue. It turned out that Sue had become possessed after making a wish to the god of Benjul the previous night. Jane sadly admitted that with no help from adults, Sue had to turn to unknown spirits. Ashamed by these words, Juan went to Sue's house. Chan had already donned his priest's garb and brought exorcism tools, ready to show his skills in front of Juan. As soon as they entered Sue's house, Chan smelled the demon's presence and saw Sue's limbs twisting oddly. He immediately began an exorcism using church methods. Sue, with a haunting smile, said they had been tricked as the surrounding walls slowly faded, revealing a forest. Juan and Chan carefully made their way through the forest barrier. Suddenly, a gigantic tree spirit appeared before them. Sue was sitting at the core of the tree spirit, repeating her words of vengeance while launching an attack on the two. Chan stepped forward to confront the threat, but was no match for the tree spirit and quickly found himself entangled in the vines. At the critical moment, a figure flashed like lightning, severing the vines that were about to strike Juan. It was the demon hunter Ban, who had left the car midway. Juan immediately requested Ban to save the shitty Sue, but Ban indicated that rescuing others was not part of the contract between them and turned to leave. Seeing this, Juan had a brainwave and began to provoke Ban, mocking him for his reluctance to act because he couldn't defeat the tree spirit. Unexpectedly, this ignited a fire in Ban, playing right into Juan's hands. He immediately raised his weapon and charged at the tree spirit. Chan, having just freed himself from the vines, joined in to help. However, the size difference between them and the tree spirit was immense. After just a few exchanges, Ban and Chan were tightly wrapped in vines, and even one was not spared. She was bound by the tree spirit, which tried to feed her to itself. Seeing one in dire peril, Ban had no choice but to release the lust demon's blood within him, thus transforming himself into a demonic form. After the transformation, Ban's combat abilities surged, and he inflicted several severe wounds on the tree spirit. Taking advantage of the tree spirit's weakened state, Juan crawled to Sue, urging her to come to her senses. She told Sue that the deity she believed in would not help her seek revenge, but was only using her wish to be reborn in Sue's body. If Sue could awaken in time, Juan promised to use her own power to help her catch her bullying boyfriend and break free from his terrible control. Sue, with tears streaming down her greasy face, received adults' help for the first time. Juan's words were incredibly sincere, and Sue chose to believe her. But as they tried to escape the tree monster's body, the vines resumed their assault and swallowed Sue. At that moment, an emotional Juan's body erupted with a powerful force, repelling the tree spirit. Meanwhile, a white-haired man and an old woman near Ban also felt this power and turned their heads towards Juan's direction. When Juan awoke, the tree spirit had already vanished. Ban used his blood to open the barrier, and the trio returned Sue to her room. Ban told Juan that the god of Benjul was not originally an evil deity, but had been tainted by the lust demons, which used Sue to hunt Juan. Learning that she was still the target of the demons, Juan was deeply troubled, and the perilous situation nearly drove her to despair. When visiting Sue in the hospital, Juan encountered Chan, and seeing that he could also perform exorcisms, Juan questioned his identity. Chan didn't hide anything, revealing that he was also there to protect Juan, and he cautioned her to keep her distance from Ban. As soon as she got home, Juan kept her promise and began to gather evidence against Sue's boyfriend for his crimes towards Sue. Despite the boy's wealth and influence, he was only sentenced to 3 years in prison. Juan was clearly not satisfied with this outcome, but what infuriated her even more was what happened next. The boy's family requested a settlement with the victim, and just like that, he managed to avoid even the short prison term. Furious, Juan stormed into the police station, only to be mocked by the boy before he left. He openly scorned Sue, saying that someone as easily dominated as her was not worth saving by the likes of them, the elite class. Enraged by his words, Juan responded with a judo throw, taking him down. Ban, who had witnessed the entire scene from a distance, was not amused. Later at home, as the boy angrily vowed to take revenge on Juan, a tree leaf drifted down from the rooftop. Looking up, he saw a tree spirit tearing open the wall to drag him into a barrier. It turned out that Ban had approached the god of Benjul, now restored to normal, and prayed for the boy's punishment. That night, Juan heard the news of the boy's sudden death. Her feelings were complex. Though there was a sense of rough justice, she found the timing peculiar. She suspected Ban's involvement, but when she confronted him, Ban insisted he never harmed humans. At the end of their conversation, Juan gave Ban a cell phone, telling him not to disappear suddenly again and to stay in touch. After Juan left, Ban called out to someone hiding in the corner. It was the exorcist Chan. He raised the concern that Ban, who had killed his lover in a past life, might do the same to Juan. Ban was touched on a sensitive chapter of his history, not wanting to respond, but instead drawing his weapon and attacking Chan. Chan lured him into a trap, knowing he was no match for Ban. Caught off guard, Ban was captured by Chan, who then took out an exorcism tool and drew a cross on Ban's forehead. Instantly, Ban transformed into a demonic form and grabbed Chan by the throat. Just then, Juan, carrying a tray of snacks to taste with Ban, saw the demonized Ban and let out a chicken noise, drawing his attention. The out-of-control Ban charged at Juan's chicken body, but at the last moment used the last of his sanity to stab his own arm with the knife, saving Juan, who fainted from the shock. Seeing himself attacking Juan due to his transformation filled Ban with sorrow, and he left the villa under the cover of night. Ban's actions to protect Juan left Chan in a state of confusion. He needed to find out whether Ban was friend or foe. From the outside, Ban did indeed seem to be part of the Lust Demon clan, but as a Lust Demon, it was unthinkable for them to protect a human. Ban once again arrived at the stone forest he frequently visited, still repenting for the wrong he had done to Juan. Suddenly, the sound of stones being struck echoed nearby. Just moments ago, the enigmatic white-haired man had unleashed another demon, allowing it to harm humans at will. Days later, a vicious murder took place in the mountains of Jeju Island. The victim was a hiker who had been brutally killed, her internal organs removed by the perpetrator. Meanwhile, the old woman and her friends watched the news at home, discussing the custom of eating the liver of murder victims, which seemed akin to the actions of a legendary fox spirit. The granddaughter Jane became intrigued and inquired about the fox spirit, but the old woman was reluctant to let her know too much and hurried her off to school instead. The next day, after Juan awoke, she recalled Ban's attack on her the night before and felt she needed to confront him for clarity. Fortunately, she had activated the locator in the cell phone she had given to Ban. So Juan ventured alone into the mountains, passed through a barrier, and finally encountered Ban in the stone forest. Juan wanted to help dress Ban's wound, but he sent her away. Juan returned to the villa in low spirits, realizing Ban might not come back for a while. The bodyguard duties were then taken over by the self-recommended Chan. Chan arrived at the school later and was surrounded by a group of girls. His high-profile popularity left Juan feeling quite helpless. That's when she saw Sue, who had returned to school but was ostracized because of the incident with her ex-boyfriend. Juan took Sue's hand and comforted her. Although Sue felt warmed by the gesture, she was still somewhat distant towards Juan, who then realized that Sue did not remember the events that occurred while she was possessed by the tree spirit. Soon after, Jane approached and informed her that they both were her benefactors, prompting Sue to express her gratitude. On their way, they also encountered Juan's friend, who was getting married in a few days, and invited Chan to the wedding. After her shift following Ban, Juan went home with Chan. Suddenly, Chan received a phone call, and from his conversation, it was revealed that he had an older brother named Kang. Chan had been separated from his brother since childhood and had never given up searching for him. However, Kang had not been faring well, living at the fringes of society, pushed around on a daily basis. On the other side, the mysterious assassin continued to hunt down humans. That day, Ban arrived outside the old woman's house and listened to the grandmothers inside gossiping about the latest victim. Not only had her liver been removed, but her body was also covered in knife wounds. Ban suddenly thought of something and rushed to examine the body. The dense knife wounds on the victim's body led Ban to suspect the white-haired man, as this was his signature method. One knew that Chan wanted to find his brother, so she mobilized her own connections and managed to locate Kang's whereabouts. Chan was grateful and insisted on escorting Juan home before setting out alone to find his brother. Juan agreed with a smile. With Chan away for the night, Juan decided not to leave her home. At that moment, Juan's friend called to let her know that she had some gifts to send to Juan and that her fiancé would deliver them later. However, on his way, the fiancé was attacked by a demon. A strong murderous intent caused Ban's sword to stir. Following this aura, he arrived at Juan's doorstep, only to see the white-haired man holding the fiancé's corpse, smiling triumphantly at Ban. Juan came outside and saw her friend's murdered fiancé, her heart filled with immense sadness. Juan's friend was about to get married but had encountered such a terrible fate. The white-haired man dropped the fiancé's body at Juan's doorstep and walked away. Ban immediately followed him, tracing the man's smelly hair. Meanwhile, Chan arrived at a dock and found his brother on a boat. Kang quickly recognized Chan as his brother. Years ago, Chan and Kang were adopted by a foreign couple, thinking they would soon lead a happy life. Little did they know, the couple's reason for adopting them was to take their organs to save their own sick child. Not long after, Chan and Kang's organs were taken by the couple, and the grievously injured Chan was discarded on the roadside. Luckily, a passing priest from the church saved him. Back to the present, the brothers sat in the rundown cabin of the boat. Chan lifted the hem of his brother's shirt and indeed found a scar identical to his own. Recalling their childhood experiences, Chan couldn't help but break down in tears. Kang quickly embraced him, and Chan held his brother's hand like a couple, hoping they would never be separated again. That evening, Chan brought his brother back to stay at Juan's villa and planned to find him another place to live the next day. Juan was very welcoming, but the way Kang looked at her was not simple. In the dead of night, Kang quietly got up and slipped into Juan's room. He watched as Juan bathed, his expression twisting into something hideous, his pupils reflecting a bloody red. It turns out it was he who had been roaming around recently, murdering and harvesting organs. Just as Kang was about to pounce on Juan, a barrier suddenly sprang up outside the bathroom, preventing him from getting any closer. It was Ban, who had arrived just in time, and he began to grapple with Kang. Awoken by the noise, Chan rushed towards the commotion only to find Kang and Ban locked in combat. Instinctively, Chan attempted to stop Ban, but Ban revealed to him that Kang had turned into a lust demon. Chan was left stunned, while Ban continued the chase with Kang, leading them into the wilderness. During the pursuit, the white-haired man appeared and joined the fray. Surprisingly, Ban was no match for the white-haired man, who knew that Ban's weakness was his desire to protect Juan. That made him vulnerable. The white-haired man sneered, certain that this weakness would allow him to kill the reincarnation of the previous savior May. Meanwhile, Juan attended her friend's fiancé's funeral, where she saw her friend crying inconsolably. Filled with indignation, Juan climbed the mountain once more to find Ban among the stone forest. She demanded to know why these tragedies kept happening around her. Ban finally confessed that Juan was the reincarnation of the savior May, whose awakening would destroy all the lust demons, which is why the demons relentlessly pursued her. Hearing this, Juan showed no concern for her fate. Instead, she wished for Ban to return to her side. Whether he was man or demon, she chose to trust him. However, Ban couldn't forget the sin of mistakenly killing May in his past life and couldn't bear Juan's trust, so he sent her heavy body away again. After leaving, Juan sought out the legend of May and eventually found a clue. A local person was aware of the story, and following this lead, Juan found the old woman. She revealed that she was the teacher of her granddaughter Jane and engaged the old woman in conversation about May's story. The old lady revealed that May possessed the ability to repair the stones that formed the barrier between the worlds. Long ago, it was the destruction of these barriers that allowed the lust demons to enter the human realm and wreak havoc. Once May's powers were awakened, she would not only be able to mend the barrier stones but also heal Ban's body. The old woman, no longer feigning ignorance, told Juan that when her body emitted a golden light, it would mark the awakening of May. But to reach this point, she had to rely on her own efforts. No one else could help her. With her mission clear, Juan resolved to shoulder the responsibility and protect everyone around her. After escaping, the demonized Kang returned to the boathouse where Chan found him, unwilling to abandon his brother. Hence, he set up a church exorcism ritual to help Kang expel the lust demon inside him. However, the church's ritual was not successful, and Chan had no choice but to ask for Juan's help. Last time, she managed to awaken Su from the control of a tree spirit, so she could surely awaken Kang as well. Moved by Chan's sorrow, Juan agreed to help. In the dead of night, Juan and Chan arrived at the abandoned nursery. But as Juan approached Kang, he turned into the lust demon, breaking free from his restraints and nearly killing Juan. Chan threw his bulletproof muscles in front of her to take the hit. Kang closed in on Juan, revealing that it was all the lust demon's trick from the start. It exploited brotherly love, forcing Chan to bring Juan to save his brother. Juan immediately fled, and just then, Ban arrived in time to engage Kang in a girly battle. Ban, still injured, found it hard to keep up and couldn't restrain Kang. At the critical moment, Chan steeled himself and killed his brother with a single stroke. Elsewhere, the white-haired man returned to his base, where he was surrounded by many followers, including Jane, who shockingly referred to the white-haired man as her uncle. The scene shifts to a flashback showing the two poor boys, Ban and his companion Tan, were trained strictly by their master, their blood infused with the essence of the lust demon, turning them into monks tasked with demon hunting. Henceforth, their mission was to kill. The sect leader subjected the two boys to incredibly harsh training every day, often confining them to a dark and dismal dungeon, which made May feel very sorry for them. She often secretly brought food to Ban and Tan, and due to this relationship, the three grew closer. The kind-hearted May went to the sect leader to plead for the two boys. She suspected that Ban and Tan were forced into becoming execution monks, a role against human principles, causing the young boys to accumulate sins and condemning them to a lifetime of suffering. However, the sect leader felt no shame, as execution monks were already stripped of human emotions. They couldn't feel happiness, anger, or guilt. Their sole purpose was to hunt and exterminate lust demons. Finally, one day, May decided to free the two boys. Unexpectedly, during their escape, May was injured. Ban and Tan could not heal her and had no choice but to return May to her family. Although Tan was opposed, he had to follow Ban back. This time, they both faced even more severe punishment. May felt guilty, but the witch training her said that as long as May focused on her cultivation and re-established the barrier in the human world to prevent the invasion of lust demons, Ban and Tan could be freed and would no longer need to be execution monks. For this goal, May made up her mind to devote herself to her practice, and from then on, the three never saw each other again. Fast-forwarding 15 years, Ban and Tan were often out hunting lust demons. However, Tan lacked the will to fight the demons, instead turning his violence towards defenseless humans. After years of suffering, he had grown to hate humanity. As for May, she had returned, now capable of drawing new barriers. She pleaded with the sect leader to grant Ban and Tan their freedom once she completed the barrier construction. That night, she visited the dungeon to share the good news with them, but Tan was skeptical. He doubted both the sect leader and May, questioning how they would let go of him and Ban, who had the blood of lust demons after the world was restored to peace. Tan's suspicions proved correct. That very night, while May was erecting the barrier, the sect leader tricked them into entering a box plastered with talismans and ordered his men to burn them alive. Ban sensed a misunderstanding and wanted to see May. However, the sect leader lied, claiming May was complicit and had agreed to their execution. This revelation was a devastating blow to Ban's sanity. The fire outside the box grew fiercer, eventually forcing them into their demonic forms. With a massive explosion, the box shattered, and the transformed Tan and Ban charged towards May's altar. Along the way, Tan managed to kill the sect leader. His foresight of the leader's murderous intent was accurate, but Tan was no longer a kind soul, having already slaughtered many innocents during past missions. Ban confronted May at the altar, asking if she truly intended to kill them. May naturally denied it, saying that she had always intended to save Tan and Ban. At that moment, Tan arrived with the sect leader's head, mocking Ban for not having attacked May. He then launched an attack on her, which Ban immediately resisted, insisting that May was unaware of the plot. But Tan, blinded by bloodlust, didn't care. He wanted a bloodbath and for everyone there to die. During their struggle, Tan pushed May, who was stabbed by Ban. This moment restored Ban's sanity, and he reverted to his human form. As May lay dying, she used the divine light within her to repel all the lust demons, sending Tan and herself tumbling down the cliff, sealing them in a state of suspension. Years later, a human came upon a mountain, tapping and knocking around the edge of a cliff. A misstep sent him tumbling into a dark space beneath the ground. Venturing deeper, he found Tan, still unconscious. Unaware of the looming danger, the human approached Tan, who awoke and killed him without mercy. By this time, Tan's hair had turned white. He was the white-haired man referred to earlier. Tan managed to escape, only to be surrounded by figures clad. The leader, dressed in white, told Tan that his awakening was the result of his own summoning. Accustomed to distrust, Tan was filled only with the intent to kill and hatred. The leader attempted to subdue the defiant Tan with force, severing one of his arms and spilling some of his blood onto the ground. The bloodied earth collapsed instantly, and strange black shadows flew from the hollow ground into Tan's body, surprisingly regenerating his arm. After demonstrating his power, the leader asked Tan once more to pledge allegiance and help these self-proclaimed immortals in white to annihilate all humans and create a new world, especially targeting the reincarnation of May. Tan considered and accepted the invitation, but he had no interest in the grand vision of a new world. He desired endless carnage and to avenge the grudge from when May sealed him away. Back to the present, Chan was still grappling with self-doubt and the grief of his brother's death. The butler couldn't bear to see him continue to decline, so he reminded Chan not to forget his mission to protect Juan, no matter what. Juan's friend had resigned from school and received news of her fiancé's death on the eve of their wedding, a tragedy for anyone. Juan was now tormented by the thought that it was her involvement with the lust demons that led to the death of her friend's fiancé, overwhelmed by guilt. Juan approached Jane's grandmother, asking how she could transform into May. Juan wanted to become strong to protect everyone around her. Seeing her resolve, the grandmother claimed that to become May, Juan would have to empty herself of who she was. This didn't sound promising, but Juan was still willing to try. The grandma turned around and fetched a mirror, telling Juan to gaze into it. As Juan and her reflection stared into each other's eyes, she was suddenly transported to another dimension. There, she experienced the agony that May felt at the moment of death, a sharp pain shooting through her shoulders. The grandma removed the mirror and informed Juan that this was just the beginning of the process of emptying oneself, a very difficult task. After returning home, Juan thought it over and decided not to run away from the challenge. She informed the butler that she would stay at Jane's grandma's place for a while. The butler had no objections, but insisted that she take Chan and Ban with her for protection. Thus, the trio arrived at the grandma's home, who was the exact witch from many years ago, and also May's mentor. Upon arrival, the grandma had Juan change into a white silk dress and follow her into the mountains for training. Not long after, Juan emerged from the house, stunning Ban in her white attire, reminiscent of May herself brought to life. The grandma led Juan to meditate under a large tree, instructing her to concentrate, gather energy from the earth, and channel it into her heart, transforming it into power until she could emit a sacred light from within her body. Juan, not fully understanding, tried her best to sense the power hidden in nature. After some time, the grandma returned home and allowed Ban to visit Juan, but warned him to keep his distance so as not to let the aura of the lust demons interfere with her training. Chan wanted to join, but she tasked him with chopping wood instead. Despite her efforts, Juan felt no power and began to lose heart. However, a minor setback didn't defeat her. Day after day, she persisted in her meditation under the tree, trying to feel the force of all things. The grandma herself couldn't help but admire Juan's determination. Time flew by, and one day Jane returned home with lots of delicious food. Ban and Chan sat down at the table. Just as they were about to eat, they sensed the presence of lust demons near Juan's training site. It's Tan who lay in ambush in a corner, eyeing her intently. Both the grandma and Ban smelled danger. Juan also sensed the peril and instinctively unleashed a power from within her. This force repelled Tan, reminding him of the scene 100 years ago when May had sealed him on the sacrificial altar, prompting him to flee for his shitty life. Not far off, Chan and Ban were taking separate routes to rush towards Juan's training ground. Due to the barrier, Chan passed by Tan without seeing him, feeling only his presence but not seeing the man himself. Ban arrived at the foot of the big tree and saw that the power within Juan was surging continuously from the wound on her shoulder, forming a solid barrier. Ban, fighting against the violent currents of energy, struggled to reach through the barrier with his hand. The force inside Juan was rampant. She couldn't control it and fell into a coma. During her unconsciousness, she remembered her past life clearly, seeing the moment of her own death, May dying in Ban's arms, promising to return and save him and Tan. At this time, Tan had fled a great distance and finally calmed his emotions. He mocked himself for still fearing May's power. In a fit of anger, he released the lust demons that had been sealed in the forest. In an instant, several streams of smoke rose from the forest and sped towards the human realm. The lust demons began to wreak havoc again. As a result, the grandma fell ill, and the training could not continue. One had no choice but to pack her bags and return home. Before the trio left, the grandma admonished Ban not to develop feelings for One in this life, and to let her complete her mission of repairing the barrier and sealing the lust demons. Because of her words, Ban realized he shouldn't get too close to One and left her home that night. The wind howled at night, and the student Sue, on her way home, was passed through by a ghostly shadow. She then went to the rooftop and jumped off as if out of her mind. Jane couldn't save Sue in time and could only watch her classmate die. That's when Tan appeared behind her. With just one sentence, he made Jane give up on her friend and follow him away. The history between the two stretched back many years, to when Jane grew up in a painful family, with an abusive father who tormented his wife and daughter daily. She ran away from home and took refuge with the ragged Tan, who already hated humanity, and took out a sharp weapon planning to harm Jane. Jane was unafraid upon seeing the weapon, and leaned back on his shoulder once more. At that moment, Jane's father appeared and took her back home. Her alcoholic father, after killing her mother, turned on Jane. She had no choice but to pick up a knife and tremble with self-defense. As her father charged at her, the knife's tip firmly stabbed into his abdomen. Jane realized it was Tan holding her hand. After the murder, Tan asked her if she regretted it. Jane shook her head and left with Tan. For Jane, Tan was her savior and the person she respected the most, so that's why she called Tan her uncle. Afterwards, Jane was taken in by her grandmother, and they depended on each other for survival. The next day, Juan arrived at school for work. As soon as she entered the school gates, she was confronted with the shocking sight of Sue's body having fallen from a building. This event left her traumatized and immersed in sorrow. However, the shadow of the lust demons still wreaked havoc within the school, flitting between teachers and students alike. Everywhere it went, people were possessed and became like the walking dead. To make matters worse, One herself fell under its influence. Just as she was about to step onto the rooftop, Chan and the butler arrived just in time to save her, bringing her back to her senses. Meanwhile, Tan told Jane that he had unleashed the straw raincoat ghost this time, a spirit capable of awakening the dark side of humanity. At this moment, the bewitched students moved like zombies towards the windows, intent on jumping from the high places. Chan had no choice but to send the butler to the broadcast room to recite an exorcism spell to everyone, while he and Ban joined forces to herd the students onto the sports field. Ban cast a barrier to confine the students within a certain area. Then Chan took a hose and imbued the holy tap water before spraying it over the crowd. With their combined efforts, the students eventually returned to normal. Despite averting the immediate danger, Tan's machinations were far from over. The straw raincoat ghost was still alive, and he was eager to release another lust demon. He commanded Jane to find the statue that sealed the lust demon, or he would go straight to Jane's grandmother. As Tan menacingly toyed with a sharp tool in his hand, Jane had no choice but to comply with his demands. Elsewhere, Chan felt that the ghost they had encountered this time was particularly formidable, capable of manipulating so many people to despair unlike any lust demon they had faced before. Ban told him that they were dealing with the straw raincoat ghost, a malicious entity that had long ago appeared on Jeju Island. Already wicked by nature, now possessed by a lust demon, its malevolence was unparalleled. Ban immediately set out to find the whereabouts of the ghost, instructing Chan to stay at the villa to take care of Juan. But as soon as Ban left, Tan began chanting a spell, distracting Chan with another bewitched, despairing human. Seizing the opportunity, he led the straw raincoat ghost into Juan's house. Juan awoke from her stupor to see her friend, dressed in a wedding gown, standing by her bed, crying like a giant baby. The sorrowful sight filled Juan with guilt, blaming herself for the death of her friend's fiancé, turning what should have been a joyous wedding into an eternal farewell. Her friend's apparition did not speak, only leading Juan outside the house, with Juan helplessly following behind her. Along the way, the butler appeared, intending to awaken Juan, but the straw raincoat ghost whispered in her stinky ear, sowing seeds of distrust towards the butler. Under the ghost's spell, Juan saw the butler with several holy images from the church, telling Chan that Juan's existence was solely to revive May's body, and that her fate did not concern him once May was awakened. To verify the butler's words, Juan searched his room and found a stack of holy images, which left her heartbroken as she realized the old butler she had trusted was intent on erasing her to activate someone else. When confronted, the butler had no choice but to admit that he was actually a priest on a mission to assist May and protect Jeju Island. Disappointed, Juan screamed for the butler to leave her home, and as she did, the shadow of the straw raincoat ghost appeared behind her, followed by the flash of blades. Ban arrived just in time to engage the ghost in a girly battle, and the belated Chan joined the fight, with their combined efforts finally killing the ghost. However, Juan, now with her heart tainted by darkness, resented the many innocents sacrificed for May's reawakening, including potentially herself. To prevent May's resurrection, Juan decided to destroy herself. As she was about to jump from the balcony, Ban reached out and saved her. At that moment, Juan recalled all the memories of her past life. After being saved, she tenderly touched Ban's handsome face, understanding that May's death was not his fault. Ban had always sought to protect May and was still waiting for her promised return to save him. Unfortunately, Juan lacked the power to cast a barrier to save Ban, who could only console the sorrowful one. Suddenly, he sensed an impending danger, and right as the crisis approached, Ban blocked an attack from Tan, but the barrier they used for protection shattered. It turns out, seeing the straw raincoat ghost defeated, Tan took matters into his own hands. The two engaged in a fast and furious battle in Juan's room, with Ban being pushed back. At the brink of life and death, a powerful force surged from within Juan, repelling Tan. But in the final moment, Tan threw his weapon, causing Ban to step in front to protect Juan, taking the blow with his bulletproof muscles. They then both fell off the cliff together. Fortunately, at the base of the cliff, there was a river. The two of them climbed out of the water and into a cave where they could recover from their injuries. One started a campfire, and as she leaned on Ban's shoulder, they chatted under the loving gaze in her eyes. As Juan's memories returned, so did her affection for Ban. She hoped that one day there would be no more lust demons in the world, and that Ban could continue to stay by her side. Despite Juan's hormone advances, Ban remembered the grandma's words and could only keep dodging her sexy body and juicy tongue, his emotions a complex mix. After his assassination attempt failed, Tan returned to the gathering place of his followers. Enraged and losing control, he began a frenzied slaughter of the humans. Amid the chaos, Jane, cradling an infant who had lost its mother, watched Tan in horror. He no longer seemed like the person she once respected. As the crazed Tan continued his massacre, Jane took the baby and fled from him, escaping the brutality of her once beloved uncle. Back home, Jane confessed to her grandmother through tears that she had been secretly helping Tan release the lust demon. Now that Tan was out of control, she urged her grandmother to flee. The grandma remained silent for a moment, then turned as if nothing had happened, intent on returning home. She had known all along about Jane and Tan's dealings and did not blame Jane, only feeling shame for not having taken better care of her granddaughter. Her words only increased Jane's guilt, knowing that Tan would soon return to kill her grandmother. Jane was determined to protect her. Jane ran back into the forest to confront Tan, begging him to spare her grandmother. However, Tan claimed that her grandmother's death was a matter of karma. He had been captured and trained as a demon hunter to combat the lust demon, and her grandmother had witnessed it all without intervening, watching as Tan and Ban suffered. Now, she too would taste pain. The grandmother knew that the feud between her and Tan had to be settled. Moreover, some of the attacked humans were still at Tan's mercy. She had to try to save them, but she was no match for Tan. Powerless to defend herself, she also had to watch Jane get hurt by him. At the moment the grandmother was injured, the ceiling stones in the forest began to tremble, signaling Chan. He followed the source of the power and eventually arrived at where Tan was. A seemingly fierce but actually girly fight ensued between the two, but Tan hardly considered Chan a threat. Chan was just a mortal, while Tan's body was impervious to weapons and possessed a rapid healing ability. After defeating Chan, Tan continued to confront the grandmother and Jane. He threatened the grandma with Jane's life to reveal the locations of all the stone statues sealing the lust demon. Unable to watch Jane die, the grandma disclosed all the locations to Tan. Tan then released all the lust demons and after completing his task, returned to kill Jane with a single blow, despite her grandma's cooperation. On the other side, after tumbling down the cliff, Juan and Ban found refuge in a cave, snuggling up for a little rest. That night, a mystical deer entered Juan's dream, guiding her to the entrance of the cave. Upon waking, Juan stepped out and suddenly felt a surge of power coursing through her. She began to wave her hands, gathering energy in the air. The glow of her spellcraft slowly materialized as she managed to sketch the beginnings of a protective barrier. She was thrilled and shared the good news with Ban, confident that with a little more effort, she could become the savior Mei, capable of crafting barriers to seal away the lust demons. However, Ban didn't seem to share her joy. Without explanation, he pulled Juan away, reluctant to have her continue her training. Puzzled, Juan persistently inquired until Ban finally confessed that he didn't want to lose her. Suddenly, Ban sensed the menacing presence of the lust demons and immediately left Juan behind, sealing the cave entrance with a barrier, and rushed to join Chan and the grandma. But he was too late. Chan was gravely injured, barely clinging to life, and the grandma had passed away. As he and Jane prepared to bring the grandma home for burial, Ban was suddenly pulled into the depths of her subconscious. This was Grandma's last bit of strength, used to reveal to Ban that the ability of the Mei to create seals stemmed from a pearl within her. In a previous life, Juan had fought the lust demon using the pearl, and during the fierce battle, a fragment of the pearl had fallen into Ban's eye. Because the pearl wasn't whole, Juan had been unable to awaken Mei's power. Realizing this, Ban knew that returning the fragment to Juan was the solution, but the grandma warned him that giving back the fragment would mean he could no longer be human. He would lose his sanity and transform into the very shape of the lust demon. But Ban didn't hesitate since he was willing to make the sacrifice. While trapped inside the barrier, Juan attempted a touch, and to her surprise, the barrier shattered instantly. Outside the cave, Mei seemed to be waiting for her. Mei also informed Juan about the fragment, but Juan refused to sacrifice Ban. Instead, she asked what would happen if she drew a barrier with an incomplete pearl. Mei explained that the pearl might seek to compensate for the missing power, potentially destroying Juan in the process to become whole. Hearing this, Juan decided to proceed. She wanted to establish the barrier with her own strength. After the grandma faded from Ban's mind, Mei's figure also began to dissipate. Ban left the house and started running towards where Juan was. As Juan said goodbye to Mei, she began to look for Ban. Along the way, she encountered many released lust demons. Terrified and on the verge of being attacked by the monsters, 2 gunshots rang out from afar. The butler appeared behind Juan like a knight in shining armor. It turned out that after Chan had been critically wounded, the butler rushed back in time. He pulled out a long, treasured demon-hunting weapon and took over Chan's duty to protect Juan. Right after the butler departed, a sudden gleam of light burst forth from Chan's sickbed. The butler handed Juan a hunting shotgun, along with several demon-slaying bullets filled with quicksilver. Juan, having learned marksmanship from the butler since her youth, was now able to put her skills to good use. Thus, the two took responsibility for their respective positions, using the shotgun to shoot down the oncoming lust demons. But for every group they dispatched, more of these fiery specters appeared. Then, arriving belatedly, Ban joined the fray, and the trio each wielded their power superbly, repelling the dense swarm of lust demons one by one. One glanced towards the altar in the distance, where the barrier was to be erected, knowing she needed Ban and the butler to escort her there. However, faced with the formidable lust demons and their overwhelming numbers, the trio found themselves hard-pressed. At that moment, a blue light streaked across and cleaved the attacking lust demons in half that were targeting Juan. The newcomer was Chan, who had awakened from his injuries. He removed his earring, unleashing an even more formidable power from within. He vowed to guard Juan's rear, allowing her to quickly make her way to the altar. Soon after, Juan ascended the altar. She waved her hands, attempting to trace the shape of the barrier, but her mind was cluttered with distractions, making it impossible to concentrate, and her attempts to establish the barrier kept failing. Sitting on the ground, she cried in distress. It was then that the specter of Jane's grandma appeared, comforting Juan with a look of tender sorrow. She reminded Juan that remembering both past and present lives and coming this far was already an extraordinary feat. At this time, Ban, who had been entangled with the lust demons, suddenly stopped. He instructed Chan to hold off the specters while he rushed to the altar. Chan bluntly stated he couldn't hold them off for long and urged Ban to make it quick. After saying so, he swung his sword, radiating blue light, and engaged the lust demons. Chan had recovered from severe injuries, and his strength significantly amplified, trading blow for blow with the specters. Ban arrived at the altar where Juan was still attempting to establish the barrier. He approached her and took her into his arms, determined to transfer the fragment from his eye to Juan. Juan tearfully refused, but Ban pleaded with her to grant him this final wish. Having experienced the loss of loved ones and betrayal by friends in past lives, all he wished for was peace. In the end, Juan accepted the fragment from Ban's eye, and Ban's pupils gradually turned red as his body began to show the form of a lust demon. Resolutely, he left to face the lust demons in a final showdown. Now both in a demonized state, their powers matched evenly. Ban had no interest in the outcome of the battle. His only desire was to perish along with the lust demons, as they were meant to vanish from the human realm. The barrier Juan had been working on was finally complete. Huge sacred stones floated in the sky, gathering a powerful force from the earth below. This force caused the lust demons to vanish one by one, with Ban and the lust demons being no exception. Before disappearing, the last image that flashed through Ban's mind was that of Juan. Then his body began to burn and eventually turned to ash. Watching the newly formed barrier in the sky, the leader of the white-robed people on the island clenched his teeth in frustration. 1 year later, Jane was walking on the familiar path home when a person clad in white blocked her way. She recognized the figure. As a child, Jane, along with Tan, had been taken to the island inhabited by these white-robed individuals. They proclaimed themselves immortals, harboring the ambition to eradicate humanity and dominate the world. The man in white seized control of Jane, for she was vital to their next scheme. Jane arrived at the stone forest and retrieved a short sword concealed within a crevice. Drawing the blade from its sheath, she noticed a character etched into the metal. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet, and the surrounding rocks levitated. Jane's pupils shifted color, mirroring the hue of Ban's eyes when he transformed into a lust demon. Meanwhile, back in Seoul, Juan, who had taken over the family business, sensed this strange energy. The short sword that once belonged to Ban vibrated incessantly. At that moment, Chan, who was in Vatican City, made a phone call. He had just received a prophecy warning of a new threat. Before demons could endanger the human world, the two had to act swiftly to vanquish them. Juan readily agreed to the call to action. She pushed open the secret chamber behind her office, revealing an arsenal prepared for the expulsion of ghosts and demons, a mix of high-tech gadgets and the power of ancient spells. Juan and Chan set out once again on their quest to save the world. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.